Bend over to your right.
What the was that?
What's up, Bears fans?
People want to hear me talk.
What's going on, Bears fans, and welcome to another episode of the Nicholas Moreano Show. I'm your host, Nicholas Moreano. Make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share this show with a fellow Bears fan. And as you know, if you are just an audio listener, we're still working on to get you on Apple Podcasts, but we are on Spotify, so you can check me out there. I've seen some reviews, some people tuning in, downloading the podcast. That's always great to see. So appreciate everybody that's been here supporting the YouTube channel. All right. Free agency is kind of wrapped up at this point. There's some visits going on. Actually, Ian Rappaport not too long ago, and I just retweeted this on my Twitter account, saying that free agent wide receiver Rondell Moore who visited the Vikings last week, is visiting the Bears today, per Ian Rappaport and Mike Garafolo. So maybe another wide receiver into the fold after the Bears, just not too long ago, Olamide Zaccheaus was signed, former Washington Commander, also Philadelphia Eagle, Falcon, is now a Chicago Bear. But I wanted to get into some of the top needs for this Bears team following free agency. And credit to everybody on Twitter who I just tweeted out after free agency, what are the top 5 needs for this team? And you guys have been blowing that tweet up with just your list of top needs for this team. And there's some varying ones, and there's definitely some common denominators, among you guys. But you guys have done an amazing job with this, just kind of taking it on your own and making your own individual list. Well, I wanted to share mine, just to kind of see where I'm at looking at this team compared to what you guys are thinking. And as I'm going through this show, make sure to, drop your list. If you agree with me, that's great. If you don't, that's all right too. But let's talk about this, because I think the Bears have done actually a really good job of really, when you look at their starting lineup for, offense, defense, like there's not a lot of, you need to fill this position with a starter. More so, you're looking at depth pieces and then eventually looking to replace older players. And you can look at a guy even like Grady Jarrett, who the Bears obviously just signed, going to be 32 in April. Joe Thuney, already at that age, at the left guard spot. So there are spots on this current team that are starters that you may just want to look at to replace down the line. Kevin Byard, at safety, he's already 32 years old. So there's some older guys, like I was just saying, that you may want to look to replace in this draft, but that's what you're looking for. I think depth, complementary pieces, and just guys that you want to take from this 2025 draft class that maybe don't even necessarily have to play significant minutes this upcoming season, but are the eventual placeholders for some of those older veterans I just mentioned once they depart. But we'll kind of get into this, and I'll just share my list with you, and I'll make sure to, have this all segmented out and make sure everything looks nice and pretty once I actually premiere this on YouTube later. But the first position group that I'm going with, and I know some people, had this in the reply to my tweet, I'm still going with the edge rusher spot, you guys. And yes, this is after the Bears signed Dayo Odeyingbo, to a 3-year, $48 million deal, which is great for Dayo, 25 years old, coming off a 3-sack season, career high in total pressures, 42 in 2024, and 2023 has career high in terms of sacks with, I believe, 8 there. And yes, you have him opposite of Montez Sweat. But why I still put edge rusher as the number one need for this team is that when you look after those two guys, and I've talked about this before, so I'm kind of being a dead horse at this point, but there's just not a lot of proven talent. You have Austin Booker, yes, who was a rookie last season, didn't play a lot in his rookie year. And then, of course, you have Daniel Hardy, Dominique Robinson, and then Cromar, which, again, a guy that's probably, if you're looking at, that's Jamri Chroma. Okay, so I'm not even a guy that I expect to obviously suit up for the 53, but that's who you have right now at your defensive end spots. I just think of it waves, rotations. Ryan Poles even talked about that the last time we were all at Hallis Hall and just talking about the edge rusher spot. You can never have enough of those guys going in waves. I just look at that second wave, and if you're looking to try to get consistent pressure or just pressure in general, who are you feeling best about in that group? Maybe it's Austin Booker at this point. I think you want to feel good about that being a former draft pick last year. Dominic Robinson has put on weight, and I think, I can remember a couple of plays that he made, but nothing that gives me confidence. Like, yes, you have Dominic Robinson in the fold now. This is going to be, a good second unit for that pass rush. I don't get that sense as of right now, and I hope Austin Booker, comes into this 2025 season having added a little bit more weight. We know Travis Smith, the former defensive line coach, liked his unorthodox approach to pass rushing, and hopefully he can get some more opportunities to do that. But I just still see defensive end as one of the biggest needs on this team. You can never have enough pass rushers, and you just don't, you don't know how things are going to play out throughout the season. Maybe one of those two guys that I mentioned at the top, Sweat and Odengbo, one of those misses time for whatever reason. You just want to have a good guy, a good placeholder there. And I think that with that number 10 overall pick, a pass rusher definitely is in play and should be in play if the Bears stick and pick at 10. So I'm still putting edge rusher above everything else at this point because I just want to see a Bears team that doesn't just have two capable guys at the top. There's just another guy, in the fold afterwards when, those guys eventually have to get a breather. There's a long drive that's happening from an opposing offense. Those guys, one of them has to come off. Bam. You feel good about that number 3 guy, number 4 guy. And I do really hope that Austin Booker can build himself and play into a more contributing and consistent role for this Bears team. But until I see that, I still want to add another young edge rusher to complement that group and then just allow this defense with Dennis Allen to, do whatever his vision for this current group of players is. Like, he can execute that to the best of his ability because he has the assets there. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to give him enough edge rushers to allow Dennis Allen to play rushing coverage. And you have a good secondary. So give that secondary more opportunities to maybe pick off some passes because quarterbacks have less time because you do have more depth on the edge rusher at the edge rusher position. So going edge rusher, number 1, and we'll kind of go on from there. I think this was as I'm kind of scrolling through, seeing, again, some of your guys' responses on what you think is the top need for this Bears team. Where, like I said, I asked for the top 5. Running back was definitely up there. Actually, the last 3 tweets I saw, running back as your number 1. And running back is my number 2, you guys. I think when you look at DeAndre Swift's last season, there were flashes of, great plays. And then there was just the inconsistencies and the thing that I have been kind of going back and forth on, how much is just, hey, that's a DeAndre Swift issue. And then how much of that is, well, look at the line that was in front of him, right? There was just inconsistencies as who was actually playing for that Bears offensive line and then how they're actually executing blocks, given all the different offense coordinators that, were kind of thrust into that position last year because of dysfunction that the Bears had. So I think when I look at Swift's season, there are obviously things he could have improved on. And I'm actually going to give you some stats where this probably just a Swift issue, but you can't put it all on him, like I was just saying. So one of the stats that Next Gen Stats does a really good job of just, displaying there that allows you to kind of see the running back production is rushing yards over expected, RYOE. And what is that? You're maybe asking. The difference between actual rushing yards and expected rushing yards on an individual play or series of plays. And then to kind of go further into that, what factors into RYOE, rushing yards over expected? Use a model that considers various factors such as down, distance to the first down, yard line, defensive alignment, and offensive line performance to predict the expected rushing yards. Okay, now you have an idea what this stat is. I'll tell you where DeAndre Swift ranked in 2024, but then also in 2023 when he was with the Philadelphia Eagles, and we know what that offensive line is about and has continued to be since Swift has left. But with the Bears offensive line in his first season in 2024, among running backs with at least 90 rushing attempts, Swift dead last in the NFL with 28.8 in rushing yards over expected percentage. He was dead last in the NFL in rushing yards over expected per attempt, minus 0.69. Nice. Not nice, actually. And then your rushing yards over expected total, minus 174, also last. So among running backs with at least 90 attempts, DeAndre Swift, there wasn't anybody worse than DeAndre Swift in that category. Okay, terrible. That's not great, right? Obviously, like if anybody's looking at this, like, oh, you should have put running back number one. Okay, I sure. Now here he is in 2023. Again, among running backs, 90 attempts, 2023. Where did Swift rank behind that Eagles offensive line? Rushing yards over expected percentage. Swift 36.9%, and the highest was 47.4%. Devon Achane. Rushing yards over expected per attempt. Swift minus 0.29, and the highest was Achane at 2.87. Let me put those numbers in case you're listening. Like there was a bunch of numbers being put out there. Where was he in 2024? In 2024 with the Bears, 28.8%. Swift with the Eagles, 36.9%. Rushing yards per attempt in 2024, minus 0.69. And then in 2023, I don't know why I'm saying minus, negative 0.29. So you see, he obviously Swift was a better running back in that regard, in terms of the rushing yards over expected with the Philadelphia Eagles than he was with the Chicago Bears. And that shouldn't be any big revelation, to be completely honest. We see the two units last season, the Eagles last season compared to the Bears this season, and you could easily say that unit with the Eagles was far better, and even obviously this season as well. But another metric that I was looking at for DeAndre Swift, just forced missed tackles after rush. This is a PFF stat. Swift in 2024 had 38. That was 21st in the NFL. David Montgomery, who Ben Johnson had last year, finished 19th in the NFL, and Gibbs was 5th in the NFL. Both ranked higher than DeAndre Swift. But in 2023, Swift had 43 forced missed tackles, and that was 14th. So a top 15 running back. So here's my conclusion, if you will. We're writing a paper, academic paper, giving you some stats, a body paragraphs, and now the conclusion. DeAndre Swift, I do expect to be better with this current Bears offensive line, given the upgrades. Joe Thuney, Drew Dahlman, Jonah Jackson. Darnell Wright, and I right now, Braxton Jones is your left tackle. So with that being said, I do expect DeAndre Swift to be better. I do. But I still believe that the Bears can add another dynamic playmaker in this backfield to complement DeAndre Swift. Because to me, between the tackles just really isn't going to be the thing that Swift is looked at as a strength. It's just not. Just given his size and how he plays the game, he does tend to bounce some things outside, and that's where you saw some of those explosive plays. Okay, like when he gets into open field, yeah, there is that. I think a higher percentage point for him to make a forced missed tackle, and that's where I like Swift the best. It's between the tackles. And now, given this interior offensive line, maybe that helps Swift. But I also just want to see another type of runner back there. I get it. Roschon Johnson is still a part of this team. I still believe he'll be on this team in 2025. Limited role, special teams contributor. But I do think that you could just add another playmaker there. And we look, we know how deep this running back class is. Whether you want to potentially use that 10th pick on an Ashton Genty or use one of the 2 second-round picks on a capable back, I'm more open to the possibility of the second rounders than I still am with Genty at 10. But I still think you can add another running back to this team. And that's why it's number 2 on my biggest needs for the Chicago Bears following free agency. Okay, as we're going along with the show, appreciate everybody for tuning in, hanging out, watching, listening, leaving comments as well. It's been awesome to see the interaction with this channel and just seeing it grow day by day. But we're going to take our first break here because we wouldn't be doing all these awesome things with this channel without Windy City Sports Cards. At Windy City Sports Cards, they specialize in buying and selling all things related to Chicago sports. Whether you're a diehard fan of the Bulls, Bears, Cubs, White Sox, or Blackhawks, they've got you covered with an extensive selection of sports memorabilia and collectibles. In addition to their Chicago-focused items, they also offer a vast collection of sports trading cards and memorabilia from your favorite teams and players. Visit their online store to find exactly what you're looking for to complete your collection or discover a new favorite. Check them out at 312windycitysports.com. You're going to find so many great things there. And, if you're looking for new merch, some new hats, new t-shirts, I actually wore my Windy City Sports Cards t-shirt when I was out in Chicago this past weekend for St. Patty's Day bar crawl. I'm going to tell you this right now. I guess 30 changes you because my friends and I, we made it we were at literally one bar. We stayed there for a good amount of time though, but we made it there. We're like, all right, let's get some food. Kind of walked away we were in the West Loop, walked away a little bit, got some food. And then we're like, all right, it's about 6. We got here on the train at 8 a.m. We can bounce. So, but I was rocking my Windy City Sports Cards t-shirt there. Go check out yours and just check out all the great memorabilia and collectibles they have. Again, at 312windycitysports.com. All right, everybody, this is the Nicholas Moreano Show. I'm your host, Nicholas Moreano. If this is the first time that you're tuning in, appreciate having you here. Tell a fellow Bears fan about this channel because, obviously be having content throughout the year, and this is the perfect time to get caught up now with free agency over with. Still, what are the top needs with this Bears team? And, I'll of course be profiling and just looking up more of these draft prospects as we get closer and closer to the NFL draft. All right, let's get into my third biggest need for this team. And if I had like a drum roll type of button, I'll have to look into that eventually. But I'm going with, and just make sure here, we went to recap, edge rusher, running back. And now number 3, I'm going with the safety spot, you guys. And there are a couple of reasons for this. And I think this is also a pretty common one that people had on their list as well. I look at when you look at the starters right now, I think the 2 that you have are a good starting duo in Kevin Byard and Jaquan Brisker. The only thing now is that Kevin Byard will be 32 by the time by this season starts. I believe 32 in August, if I'm not mistaken. In his first year with the Bears, man, like Kevin Byard, hey, he showed you some things. Played in all 17 games, and that was the thing we knew about Kevin Byard. He was going to be available. And damn, he was. He was there every single game, showed up, finished with 1 interception, 7 passes defended, 1 forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries, 2 sacks. Remember the big time hit that was that Jordan Love at the end there? I believe it was in Green Bay, and 130 combined tackles led the Bears. So Kevin Byard, first season, filled up the stat sheet. Good for him. Then you have his counterpart, Jaquan Brisker, who was having a great season for the first 5 weeks. I mean, 40 total tackles, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, an interception, 2 passes defended. I wonder where Jaquan Brisker would have ranked, had he not sustained that concussion in the game against the Carolina Panthers and then missed the rest of the season. But this is a need because not only do you have an aging player, still very productive, and I have no problem with Kevin Byard being obviously your starting free safety in 2025. But what I was talking about at the top of the show, finding that eventual replacement. And yeah, you still have just kind of looking at the guys that they have behind him. You have Elijah Hicks, you have Jonathan Owens, again, all the safeties in general, Tarvarius Moore, and then Alex Cook. So you do have some safeties behind him, but if you're still looking for, I don't know, the impactful playmaker, I get it. I completely understand why the Bears, if they choose to draft a safety, did so. And also you have to factor in Jaquan Brisker and just the time that he's missed due to concussions. Look, at this point, and it's sad to say, but you almost expect Jaquan to miss time. You don't want that to be the case because he is such a man. He's a multiplier in terms of just the energy he brings onto the football field. Like when I'm watching these games from the press box, I'm focused, like especially defensively. I'm like, where is number 9? Line up in the box. Well, obviously line up in, 2 deep safety look. Sometimes they'll have him in single high when they want to switch it up with Kevin Byard. But I like Jaquan Brisker. I like what he's done when he's been on the field. But it's always that if and when for Jaquan Brisker. So that's why I would think that another safety, even though I listed off some guys that they do have in, for depth pieces there, could definitely be in play for the Chicago Bears. And if Jaquan was healthy, then I don't know if this is as much of a I don't know if this one doesn't if it makes my list, because I also had some other position groups that I had here, but I had to, kind of adjust them as I was going through it and thinking through, this exercise. But safety, whether that's free or strong, I'm looking at that as a definite need for this Bears team. Quick water break here, or this is actually my coffee break. But so that's where I have safety at number 3 on my list. And then number 4, let's get into it. Number 4, sticking with the defense here, defensive tackle. And maybe this on the surface level doesn't seem as big of a need because you have, Grady Jarrett, Gervon Dexter, Andrew Billings. This is where I think, again, I factor in age of Grady Jarrett, will be 32 in April, but you just want to make sure you have enough guys on the interior of that defensive line because of how important those guys are, whether it's just simply stopping the run or being productive pass rushers. And I just think when you look at, Gervon Dexter, I think is going to be a fine player for the Bears. And I especially liked how he started the season and had finished with 5 sacks, but 4 of those sacks, you guys, came in the first 5 weeks. Then 1 sack in the last 10 games he played. And sacks aren't everything, right? But it is just trying to show you that that stat line did drop off as the season went on. And sacks, Grady Jarrett was even talking about sacks in his introductory press conference. I mean, there are guys that, end with, I forgot the number he said, but they have all this quarterback hits and pressures, and that can still be equally as productive. No doubt about it. I just think that having another guy in the mix there, because like I said, the Bears are going to go through waves of defensive linemen. So you just want to feel really good about whoever is next up in line when Gervon and Grady Jarrett come out. Or I'm sure they'll mix up combinations depending on down and distance and situation in the game. Maybe you might have a Grady Jarrett, Andrew Billings when, Dexter is out. But looking behind them and just kind of telling you the players there, you have Chris Williams, who the Bears had last year. And then you have, and see, this is where I think it gets a little uneasy a little bit with Zach Pickens, a former 3rd-round draft pick who was a healthy scratch for a majority of the back end of last season. Just could not get on the football field. I felt like too, just now that, kind of reflecting a little bit, just my time in the locker room, it seemed like there was a little bit of a lack of confidence from Zach Pickens. Like when you get to be a healthy scratch, I remember it was Jacob Martin, a defensive end for the Bears, and gosh, I can't remember who the other player was, but they're just talking to Zach. And I don't know exactly what the context was, but kind of giving him some reassurance a little bit. Tell him I remember just like keep working was some of the words that Martin said. But yeah, Zach Pickens is kind of fallen out of favor here with e- especially last season with what he could potentially do to impact this football team. And then the other guy that they had here signed off of, I think Green Bay's practice squad, Jonathan Ford, if I'm not mistaken. Hopefully that's right. Yeah, I think that's what it was. So again, I think they're just given Jarrett's age, even though he seemed really youthful in his introductory press conference, you just want to make sure you still have capable guys there. So another defensive tackle at that at the in that Bears room, I think would do some good things with just giving the Bears a lot of versatility in their type of alignments, and also when they get to those games where I think in the NFC North too, obviously, Detroit's going to want to run the football. Same thing with Green Bay with Josh Jacobs, and then obviously Minnesota. Like you're going to have to be able to stop the run, and the Bears have not been able to do that consistently enough, especially the back end of last season after Billings went down. You need to have guys that can fortify the interior of that defensive line and be consistent with it. Maybe drafting a young rookie to help that group could be what helps out the Bears there. All right, that's number 4, you guys. So this is the last group that I have, or the last position. And I went back and forth. I went back and forth here. It was either X or Y, and I ended up going with, I don't know if this is obvious, but I went with offensive tackle here for my 5th position of need for this Chicago Bears team. And maybe it could have been higher given however you feel about Braxton Jones and backup Karan Amagaji. So that's where I think it factored into, my list here. But we all know that Braxton Jones, I think, gets, depending on where in Bears Twitter you look into, like he is a serviceable left tackle. And I think people get mad when you put the caveat for a former 5th round draft. I'm just saying serviceable left tackle at this point. When he's healthy, I just think that you saw some good things out of him. Still, like he's been saying, he's been wanting to work on the bull rush for forever now. And there's still times where the bull rush still ends up getting a guy like Braxton Jones. And if that's his weakness, that's his weakness. But just kind of looking at, his season last year, played 719 offensive snaps, 7 penalties, 5 sacks allowed, 2 quarterback hits, 26 total pressures allowed, 103rd in the NFL. Okay. So I just think you could do a lot worse than Braxton Jones. So if the Bears decided, hey, we're not gonna draft that left tackle of the future. We feel good about Braxton coming off surgery. He's gonna be healthy. I get it. I understand. But I also can see the other side of this argument or conversation where the Bears, if they want to upgrade that position and want to do it with a top draft pick, I don't fault them for doing that at all, really. But I think what also why I factored in left tackle here is like Karan Amagaji, former 3rd round draft pick out of Yale, wasn't healthy for the start of the season, missed basically all of training camp, then gets thrown into Monday Night Football against the Minnesota Vikings, and we know how that really shaped up for Karan Amagaji in his first start. He was told he was going to be the starter on Saturday, right? I believe it was Saturday, and then you have the Monday night game. So not much time to prepare, and 126 total offensive snaps in his rookie year, gave up a sack against that game in the versus the Minnesota Vikings, and then 7 total hurries he also allowed. I remember after that Monday night game, hopping on the post game show, and Lance Briggs was on, and we were talking about Karan Amagaji, and I told them what I had heard from Amagaji in the post game locker room, just in an interview, and like saying that he didn't have enough time to start, but it wasn't an excuse. And I wanted to kind of give Amagaji that grace a little bit. Like, yeah, this is a guy that didn't have a lot of time to prepare for a very complex defense like that. And, I thought like that was a valid, not excuse. I don't want to say excuse, but a valid point to make. And then Lance, who I, appreciate and, has great insight, was basically saying when you get drafted into the NFL, like that's an opportunity and you have to be ready. It does like you as a backup, you should be preparing like you're the starter. And then after listening to him and how passionate he was about this being obviously someone who's played the game, then that kind of way of thinking like, yeah, Karan should have been better prepared, but it's a tough spot to be put in. But yes, he should have been better prepared, and hopefully he learns from that moment going forward so that he's more well equipped to handle maybe a spot start if that's what the Bears, end up having to do at some point in the season if somebody goes down. So I'm not quite ready to give up on Karan Amagaji, but I'm also not like front and center waiting to see what he can do. Like given how much upgrades you put into this offensive line already, and if that's the weak spot, if Karan Amagaji would have to play for any particular reason, like I don't want to see that yet. Maybe over time, maybe if I see something throughout training camp, preseason, then I'll have a better feel for it. But as of right now, like I don't want to see that happen. And like I said, I feel good about Braxton Jones if he's still on this football team, your left tackle. But I can also look at some of these left tackles in this draft and be like, okay, if the Bears want to go use number 10 on that, I understand. I understand Ryan Poles. I understand Ian Cunningham. I understand Ben Johnson if you want to go do that. So offensive tackles there, but I just put offensive tackle. I didn't say specifically in my list left tackle. I mean, behind Darnell Wright, you did you had Larry Borum go off to Miami. So who is that next guy behind him? Joshua Miles, a former 7th round pick out of Morgan State in 2019, has 3 total snaps, all on special teams. That doesn't give you a lot of confidence if something were to happen to Wright. So I just think that offensive tackles still should be on the list when you're considering Bears needs and how they factor into this team following free agency. Now, what some of the positions I was debating putting in here was definitely that Sam linebacker spot because guys, after now Jack Sanborn going to Dallas, you're really, I think, left in an interesting spot where, when you do go into that typical or more traditional, I should say, 4-3 package, heavier lineup, maybe offensively he's on the field. You want to get 3 linebackers on there, stop the run, whatever it may be. Right now, I guess it depends on who you're looking at in terms of depth chart, but that third linebacker is probably between Noah Sewell and Amen Angbang for the guys. And the people behind them, they also have Carl Jones and Swayze Bozeman, who I believe from Kansas City. That happened sometime during Super Bowl week, if I'm not mistaken, that transaction. So I do think that another linebacker that you can, what's the right word, feel good about when he's on the field could be another addition to the team. Because when Jack Sanborn was out there, I never had issues with Jack Sanborn being on the football field. I think he made plays. Limited player in terms of just athletic ability, size, speed, those types of things. But Jack Sanborn just balled, man. Like he made tackles when he needed to. And I just think that you can't ever have too many of those types of players, but that would be another position group that I think could be addressed if you're looking at outside the top 5. And maybe it's factored into your top 5. And I know I definitely saw that in people's groups. Another one, and this one I think was valid too, another tight end. When you're looking at it, yes, you have Cole Kmet. You just signed Durham Smythe from the Miami Dolphins. But could you do better than I hear the rest of the guys? I know Steven Carlson, I believe, resigned. So I know he's on there. Joel Wilson and Jordan Murray are your other tight ends. I know it depends what you're looking for. Are you looking for a more blocking type of tight end? Do you want more of the receiving threat tight end? So I just think another weapon at that position group could easily be something that the Bears could add if you're just not feeling comfortable with the top 2 guys in Kmet and Smythe. But those are, I think that was also a common denominator amongst people who were just replying to my tweet about needs. And then wide receiver. Yes, the Bears did just sign Zacchaeus behind Roma Dunze, DJ Moore. It all depends on how you also feel about Tyler Scott right now. And, you have Samurai Torrey and John Jackson. Look, those are your other people right now in the wide receiver room. You can add another playmaker there. You definitely could. But to recap and kind of, close out this show, also feedback. What do you think is, I guess, depending on the topic, right? But it is just a one-man show with me, so I don't want to go too long. I don't want to drag this out to an hour, and this is not where this is going to land. Probably a little under 40 minutes. What is a good time frame for you guys in terms of podcast length? I just want to get your guys' feedback on that so that maybe I can construct these shows so that I can plan things out to hit that time frame. And that's going to vary too, just like the list for the top 5 needs. I'm sure that will vary, but let me know in the comments, and I'll definitely consider all your submissions and take that into consideration when I record this next show. But number one, so again, ranking my top 5 needs for the Bears following free agency. We're going number 1, edge rusher. Number 2, running back. 3, safety. 4, defensive tackle. And 5, offensive tackle. That's my top 5. Let me know what you have in your list, and we can debate and talk about it. But here's the thing. I think the Bears have done an excellent job of just upgrading this roster to where those needs, like I said at the top of the show, are more depth pieces, are players to replace these older veterans. But I still look at, like I said, edge rusher is like, you need another guy there. You can never have too many of those. And even though, Dio, Odango. Yeah, Dio. I don't know why I'm like blinking. But Young, I think there is potential there. I just want to have another player there in the fold so that when those waves come in, you feel good about your pass rush. But guys, that's going to do it for this episode of the Nicholas Moreano Show. Please like this podcast, like this video, like the podcast on Spotify, leave a comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe and follow on Spotify. Tell a friend about this as well. This is only, still the beginning of, me getting these podcasts out there to everybody who, just wants to get more informed about, their team and what's going on with them and the transactions they're making and, everything that goes into it. But appreciate everybody for hanging out. We'll do this next time. But until then, bear down, Chicago. Bend over to your right.
What the was that?
What's up, Bears fans?
People want to hear me talk.